guys, we have a special organization that's willing to speak with us regarding this difficult conversation, difficult topic of sex trafficking and sex abuse. We have Haven House, and they are going to help us understand what's really going on in the world, meaning in our world, which is the United States, and how they deal with victims and how they help the victims more so than deal with them. So who would like to start first? Debbie, would you like to go first since you're the director?
Haven House is a domestic violence, sexual assault, trafficking, stalking, harassment agency. We are found in Northeast Nebraska. We actually are found in a tri-state community. We kind of butt up right with South Dakota as well as Iowa. Haven House has been founded since 1978. We've been in the community. Haven House was started actually by a board of directors. It was all volunteers. There was no staff members. They ended up writing a nonprofit. They got the 501c3 status. They got all of that situated, and then they were able to apply for grants, which finally allowed them to hire an executive director, and then all of the staff to come from there. It was back in when we had originally signed up to get our 501c3, we ended up having to get almost sponsored by another person or like another agency. So that we actually got sponsored by Wayne State College, which is a college that is a 4-year college that is found in our service area. And they're the ones that actually kind of sponsored us to be able to get the 501c3 status. And so that opened up a lot of opportunities for Northeast Nebraska.
This is happening since 1978, you mentioned.
Yep.
Wow. So what made the founders, should I say, the founders, what made the founders think of doing this? Were there a lot of cases or how did it start?
They ended up getting together and they saw a huge need in like the community. There was a lot of like police calls and stuff out to domestic violence calls, sexual assault calls, and they just found a huge need. The number started increasing rapidly in Northeast Nebraska, and so they're like, okay, we need to get something in place where people can go. And so then we ended up opening up and getting all of that funded.
I hope I'm not using the wrong terms, but should I say victims? Is that the right term?
They're kind of transitioning more into survivors. So a lot of that is we're just transferring, kind of getting away. They did kind of some studies out there and like nationwide, and a lot of people don't like to be considered a victim because once everything is done, once they're on the other side and they're living their life, they're like, no, I'm now a survivor. I'm not a victim anymore. And so they're kind of moving to the word survivor instead of victim.
I was filming in North Dakota, my previous film, and I came across a survivor, and she started to speak to me about her life, and she was the reason why we started to make this film because I came back to New York and discussed it with everybody here, and I said, we are making this film on horses, which we are donating X amount of money percentage to people who were taking care of the horses. But in this case, I feel a compelling need to do this because here we are humans, we're speaking about humans and not horses. So she was the reason why we thought of starting and creating this film. Of course, the story is not exactly the same as her life was, but we've taken a good bits and pieces from her. I've interviewed 82 survivors, and I have generated this script from there. Um, what comes to my mind is a lot of these survivors that I spoke with, they didn't know that they were being abused. Is that something your organization encounters?
We've had several clients that come in for domestic violence, and then we later realized that they were actually human trafficking victims as well. Um, but they never had realized that they were actually human trafficking victims. And of course, we're not going to tell them, well, you're a human trafficking victim. We just have a little sheet of paper that we ask them to fill out to check yes or no. I think it's about 10 to 15 questions just to see if they've been photographed without their permission, and so the photograph's been sold on the internet, if they've had to give sex or do work for a place to live, if somebody has collected money for them to have sex with other people. There's like several questions
I see.
just to identify, and a lot of people don't know that they are actually being trafficked.
So, Tammy, can you tell us what is the process of your organization? Like, take us through step 1 to 2 or 1 to 5.
We try to do a lot of outreach. We've been on the news. We go into public places and we try posting our stuff. We post our stuff at our local courthouses. We put up tables, flyers. We do it in restrooms. We do it in the community health centers. We just try to get our word out there so that our number is available, so that we are here for them when they are ready to reach out.
And they contact you, do you send people to get them from there, or do they just walk into your organization themselves?
Sometimes it's over our crisis line. We do for our staff safety. We ask them to go to a public place for us to pick them up. Sometimes they walk. There are walk-ins. It just kind of varies. Most of the time, they don't have transportation. They don't have their clothing. They don't have their documents. Their the trafficker or their abuser has almost all their stuff, and they were just fleeing from it.
What is the next step? What happens now? You have knowledge of who they are, or is it a she all the time, or is it a she and a he?
Absolutely, it is both. We do have an emergency shelter, but sometimes for their safety, we do try to get them bus tickets to wherever they think that it will be safe for them to go. It goes case by case, depending upon their situation and what makes them feel comfortable. If they feel comfortable in this area and it's not a safety risk for them or for our staff, then we do have a short-term shelter that we put them in, and we help them. If they want to stay here, we help them sign up for housing, medical assistance, just anything that you can think of that's going to help them move forward and remove barriers to get them into their own place.
Do you now meet with the survivor and have a meeting with them and tell them that you've been abused and so on, and what do you do from that point onwards?
We start by applying for different benefits through the state, for housing, looking for apartment, assisting them with looking for jobs on. We just give them the resources. They do the work. We give the resources. We're there for emotional support, transportation sometimes, medical advocacy, just protection orders. We just try to just accommodate them, each individual, as their need is.
Like, how are they mentally coping with life, really, at this point when they come to you?
Well, I think each individual trauma, they handle trauma differently. A lot of them, may have been, held against their will, had not been able to make their own decisions. So here at Haven House, we make it completely clients, centered, to where we just give options. We do not control any of their decisions. We do have shelter policies and procedures for the safety of them and for us, but other than that, their decisions are their decisions, and we respect it 100%, whatever they decide.
Are these survivors on any kind of substance abuse?
Most generally, yes, but we are not a wet shelter, we are a dry shelter. We do not allow use of substance abuse in our shelter or substance abuse in our shelter. Then if that was a case to where we had found substances in our shelter or they were on substances, we would reach out to local places that would be able to suit their needs better, for rehab or whatever. Then we could actually get to the trauma part and get to the, building part. But without, you have to take it step by step. Without that, it's really hard to get them on their feet and forward back into the community, so there's just different levels, different steps.
Once they come under your protection, so to speak, you have to start evaluating whether they are on some kind of drug abuse. I'm not saying whether they are on drug abuse willingly or not willingly, but besides the point, Because if you do, since you are a dry shelter, if you do take them off, maybe they'll go through withdrawals and have another issue on your hands. So how do you go about evaluating that, whether they are on substance abuse that they cannot come out of immediately?
If we see things that are abnormal or so forth, or if we feel like they need medical attention, we will definitely offer the medical attention or offer them some sort of resource. And, you know, if they feel they need it, we feel they need it, we will offer the resources. But we could definitely cannot make the decisions for them. However, we can't shelter them in the condition if they are not physically stable because our shelter is not staffed 24/7.
So what is the goal of your organization?
Our goal is to stop violence, to get people away from their violent situations. The shelter is so that they have a safe place to go. Um, and it is short term. It is just meant to get them back onto their feet and get them stabilized.
Do they have families, children who are also needing of care?
Yeah, we do mothers with children, families, you know, full families.
Your organization will take in an entire family.
Yes.
That is that is amazing. So what happens if there's an entire family on in your in your organization? How do you meet with different individual needs, like father, wife, kids?
Sometimes the kids are in school. So in our state, they are required that they have to be, if they come from outside of our location, they can't be out of school for more than 3 days. I think it's 72 hours. And so we have to, the biggest thing when we get them, we're like, hey, unfortunately, like you do have to get your kid in, like let's get them into the school system if it's kids. And then once the kids are in, then that kind of leaves that open, like day-to-day case management during the day. However, there is a lot of times where the kids either they don't go to daycare, they don't go to school, or they're under the age of like school age. So when that happens, is going back to that case management. What we're doing on the first days is if they want to get a job, we're there to sign up for daycare, help get them daycare assistance. That way they have somewhere to take the child. Then that way they can go and do all of their errands. They can come go apply for jobs. They can come in and case manage with us. Kind of all of that situation. It's definitely all case by case. Some people have kids that are only in the school systems. Some people have them where they're not. And so we do have areas. So we do have staff members. If somebody comes in and somebody's working with like the survivor, and like the other clients will like kind of, or not the other clients, the other staff members will end up like sitting with the kids, like getting out the coloring books, sitting with them and kind of just playing toys with them. Or so we do child advocacy well, but it's more of just keep them kind of entertained so they're not there with their parent trying to like hear what we're talking about, where that can lead to re-traumatizing them. And so there's just a lot of aspects. So we definitely try our best to kind of let the kids, like if the parents are okay, just play with the staff members for a little bit. So it's definitely when a client or like a survivor comes in, or if there's a multiple staff members that are on at once with that family. But how it's just a single person and they don't have kids, and we can just open up to one staff member working with them. But usually when it's a family and their kids aren't in school, it's an agency effort to try to wrap all kinds of services around that family.
I'm going to say that this situation is after the abuse has already happened. What happens if the abuser shows up at your doorsteps? How does that leave you? Aren't you guys putting yourselves in harm's way?
We actually recently got panic buttons installed, and we have a very good relationship with our local police department. We actually had an incident where a child had pushed our panic button, and the police were here within seconds.
The abductor or the abuser, have you had incidents where they show up at your steps and threaten you guys?
We've had scenarios where they find out that the survivor's working with us. They'll come in and try to get services because they want to know what we're actually helping them with. And so they kind of come in. Some of the times we don't even know that their partner or whoever is like a client already. We have no idea. They just walk in and like, what do you guys help with? And so we tell them like this is what we do and everything. And then there's been another time where we've had a client in one of our offices, and then the abuser was like stalking that client. They ended up watching the client come in, and a comes back with a staff member. And so then ended up where they came into the office and told them, we were like, hey, unfortunately, like, I don't know why you're here, but is there anything that we can help you with? Here's the services that we offer. And so everybody kind of knew in that situation the survivor was in here, but yet did have we have kind of like a longer office. And so we kind of just put it off like this is what we can help you with. And if there's anything else, if you want to come and talk with somebody, if not, you can, you can leave, you can keep our information with you. There has been times where we've had people follow to the office. Um, we've seen people staked outside the office before, like as like users. It's definitely I feel like it just happened. There is situations we had abusers calling, trying to figure out everything that way. We do have a huge confidentiality policy.
You guys are putting yourself in harm's way at all times. I think I could be sitting here and making it up, but I think that you are. What makes you do that?
We try to safety plan all the time. Like most of the time, we'll send two staff out. We're always in a public lit place. Um, but the reason why we do this is because we're passionate about it. This is something that we want it to we want to end it. We want it to stop. Um, we're just trying to educate people that it is there and it is happening.
It's good to take care of things after. Nobody's saying medicine is not good, but what are we doing for the cure aspect of things? And I'm not saying you as in your organization, I'm saying our nation. What are we teaching students in school? What abuse is? Are we speaking publicly about abuse? Because I said I interviewed 82 girls. There were no guys in there, 82 girls. A lot of them, I don't have a number or percentage, but a lot of them didn't know that they were being abused. Actually, one of them sticks out in my head who said to me that she didn't know that, no, no, she thought that her father was supposed to do that as a father. He was 11 years old.
Generational trauma.
And she didn't know until she spoke about it when she got a little bit older to her friends, and not even to her family, to her friends. And her friend said, wait a minute, that's not right. She didn't know. She thought that was normal. And I say, shame on us. Shame on us, because it has, how come our 11-year-old girls or guys don't know what's abuse and what's not? What are we doing in the school districts? What are we teaching our kids? And where are we teaching our kids?
Trying to get into the school systems. For some reason, the word sex is an offensive word. But we've been trying to get in because we do want to show the cycle of abuse. We want to be able to educate on human trafficking does not just mean like they picked this person up and they took him across country. That sex trafficking and human trafficking happens right here, and the person does go home afterwards. And there's people out there who are grooming children that are just trying to get the children's, thinking that, oh, this person's so great. They buy me this, they buy me that. And it's just such a hard thing, and I just think we just need to start educating people, and we just need to be talking about it more. And we need to be openly talking about it and not thinking it's a shameful thing to talk about to a child, because it's not. It's a safety thing.
You guys are in the front line of this, and I want to ask you, what do you suggest our politicians do? I mean, you turn on the television every night and you turn on to any news channel, and they're talking about this nonsense of politics. How about put a segment in there about educating our children? Why don't we do that? So, what do you suggest, and how do you suggest we may be able to change this?
A lot of the reporting process, a lot of people don't want to go through the reporting process. What that means is, for example, if somebody gets sexually assaulted and it goes to trial, now they have to tell how many people their story, re-traumatize themselves. They get into that courtroom. If it goes in front of a jury, now you have to tell your story again to that jury. Everybody's sitting in the courtroom, and now you have to relive that experience. Whatever happened, they want you to be as detailed as possible. A lot of people don't want to they want to block that out. They don't want to have to remember what happened to them. And so just re-traumatizing them after just speaking it every single time they have to speak it, it is just very re-traumatizing on them. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to go through is because I feel like a lot of people that end up going to the court system or going to trial, getting a trial, if they even get that far, if they do get that far, I feel like they get the person that it happened to, if they have somebody, if they went through, did a rape kit, they have somebody, they can confirm that it was somebody. I feel like the people, they don't get as much of a sentencing as what they would like to. I mean, we've seen it where they even get probation for it. We don't even see jail time some of the times for our cases. And I feel like we speak to like our survivors afterwards, and they're like, I had to go through, tell these people this, tell them this. I had to tell so many people my story to get somebody to get probation off of it. What was the point of it? Like, why would I even come forward if that's all that I'm going to get out of it? We have heard that time after time after time again. And so I feel like that's just one of like the small reasons why people don't want to report, or they're scared what's going to come out of it. They're scared that nobody's going to believe them. All the blame gets put on the victim. I mean, you hear all the time. They're like, oh, like for example, it's, oh, well, then you shouldn't have been wearing that. Like if you would have covered up, that's what would have happened to you. It's your fault. And so I feel like there's a lot of victim blaming. I just feel like there's so many factors that contribute to people actually coming forward and wanting to report on it.
Before I started this film, I had no clue. I had no clue. And of course, I'm an immigrant. Right? I came to America in 1990, and this has been the greatest thing that happened to me in my life. I came to America, and then when you come here, everything is amazing, and then you start to do things where you're leaving New York. At least for me, I should say, when you're leaving New York and you're going, not that it doesn't happen here, it happens in New York as well. I just didn't know. I just didn't know. And you go elsewhere and you hear these things. I'm like, wait a minute, this is happening in America? To me, it's like the purest country in the world, because what it did to me, what it made me do, achieve, and so on. But when
Mhm.
you hear that these things are happening here, I am just totally in disbelief. I can't believe that these are the things that are happening in America. And how do you stop them? And no one so far has given me an answer of how to stop it. I personally think the only way we can even attempt to do anything is to get them when they're young, educate them.
Prevention is huge. Because I know Tammy talked a little bit about the cycle of violence. So, for example, if you have people and say they're like getting sexually assaulted, the likelihood of them sexual assaulting somebody else is very high. And so I feel like just breaking that silence, letting people know that if it's happening, then you have somewhere to talk about it. But I go back to prevention, and I know that like the federal grants, they don't really fund prevention. There is funds out there now. It's starting to come back that there is prevention funds. And so I feel like if you get into the schools, if the schools will let you in, you have to talk about it. That is the biggest thing. You have to let them know about what is right and wrong. Just like you said, we've had quite a few clients that come to us, and they'll bring in their children, and they'll be like, well, we didn't know, like their kids will be like, how was I supposed to know that this wasn't normal? How, like, and that's what it was, is they went to school and they ended up talking to somebody, like one of their friends, about the situation. And they're like, your parents are not supposed to do that to you. Like, what is going on? And then that opens up, like, then they'll go to the counselors, and then it just kind of goes on from there. And so I feel like just educating these children at a young age, letting them know that, yes, our big thing right now, I feel like in the violence world, is that you can break the cycle. Like a lot of people, it's just a cycle, it's just going to continue there, but you can break it. And so I think the way that you're going to break it is you talk, you start having those conversations, you have communication. The schools let you in to talk about people. If school is required in America, then why don't we try to hit however many kids that we can in the school district? Just talk about prevention. And so even if it comes down to having flyers or whatever, and then sending it home with the parents so that way they know that they're talking about it. I feel like it goes back, a lot of it is prevention, because we want to be able to prevent the actual trauma from happening. Because I feel like I know just a couple years ago, we had somebody call us that had been living in Northeast Nebraska. They never told anybody that they were sexually assaulted. And then they came forward, it was like 25 years later. And then they're like, something just triggered me. I heard almost the exact same scenario again, and it triggered me back to when I went through this. And so they wanted to come in and talk to us. And by that time, 25 years had passed. But I feel like I just feel like it goes back to we need to talk about it. We need to have communication. We need to talk about the silence. Or the cycle. We need to talk about how to break the cycle.
There's funding available for cure, but there's no funding available for prevention. I mean, I mean, there's something wrong there, don't you think?
There just needs to be more funding across the board, and the school system needs to let somebody in to educate at a younger age that violence is not okay.
What do you think your organization needs to put the word out there that, hey, we are here to help? Like, what is your organization needing on?
Some of the big like fundings is like the Violence Against Women's Act and stuff like that. There's a lot of like national funding out there, but a lot of those people won't pay for advertisement. We can't put anything. We can't pay for like TVs. We can't pay for commercials. A lot of them won't even let you pay for like a billboard to say like, hey, this is the agency. This is what we serve. If anything has happened to you, call this number. They won't even let anything like that. And so yeah, I feel that there is certain grants that'll let you do that, but a lot of time they don't want to pay for like promotional items. So for example, if we go out and do an outreach event and we go out, we set up a table with our information on it and where to go for help. They won't really pay for anything but brochures of ours to sit on the table. So like we can't buy, for example, like I know we've talked about as agencies like buying magnets and having like all of like the Northeast Nebraska, like who do you call in this situation? And then we could have like if you experience domestic violence or sexual assault, call this number. They won't let anything like that. They won't pay for that. Like they won't pay for like even like pen. There is some grants that will, or like pen. Say like if you want a pen and you want so that way somebody can put it in their purse and they like the user just will see that it's a normal pen or they won't even think of it. But yet it's just something that if the person that's getting abused knows like I need to find that pen because I need to get that phone number, that it's that we out there. We just need to get our information in the hands of the survivors to be able to have them call us to get them out of that situation. That's what I believe, and that's how I look at it. Is we just need to let everybody know where to go for help. Like we do, I want to prevent, but if we can't reach them at the prevention stage and something does happen, then where do they go? We get so many people tell me all the time that they're like, I don't even know what is your agency? And they walk in, they're like, I didn't even know anything was like this. And they got referred, and we kind of tell them, we're like, unfortunately, like a lot of people don't know that we're a service until you need us. And then you just hope that somebody had referred you to us or you were able to Google it or anything like that. And I think that just getting our word out there, that's huge. Where to go for help, that's huge.
How much does it cost to get pens made or magnet made? I mean, is it that much that the funding
Uh,
doesn't provide you with that?
I actually ended up so I am working on a budget now to get some of that promotional stuff. And so I know when I just off the top of my head, like pens, they run you a couple bucks a pen. And so some of them you can get like $1 a pen. So if you're getting 100 pens and we rely on our donations. So a lot of like our promotional items come off of like in-kind donations is what it is. So people in the community, if they want to support your mission, they'll just donate like $100, and then that's what we use for like those promotional items. So if we want to put like an ad in the paper or anything like that, it has to come out of our in-kind donations.
Is this federal funding?
We have federal, we have state, and then we also have private, like community-based foundations that support us.
I think that it serves a purpose of someone, a victim trying to find you. It's you're talking about life and death if they are captured by someone who is abusing them and they want to get in touch with you to save their lives. What is $1 cost? What is $1 matter? Sorry, to be able to give them the information so they can call you. That was going to be my next question, is like, I am a victim. and I don't know about your agency either. How am I supposed to know that? Like, how, if you don't advertise, how am I supposed to know that, hey, for me, the whole, this is a big bad world, bad world. I cannot reach out to anybody. How do I know that you guys, the good guys, exist?
That's the problem that I feel like we have, is that we have to rely on going into like the public health department, going into the police station and doing presentations and being like, hey, we're here for you. If you guys ever come across anybody that has domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, trafficking, give them our number. Like, here's some cards. So we ended up getting like little like business cards. And so the way that we had got those paid for is we kind of said that they're going to be used for law enforcement. So when law enforcement goes on a call, you're supposed to give them the card and it has our name on it and our information on it, and then they can choose to call us. So there is some things that we do, but we rely a lot on word of mouth. Our community partners that are going to see the people will talk about to like the school counselors because they're going to see a lot of kids. We talk to we put our information out in like doctors' offices and stuff like that. Just all anywhere that we can get our information, whoever's going to let us put our information up, we're putting our information up.
You're definitely putting your information up on my website for sure. And we are actually listing, people all over the country. Whoever we interview, we will put their listings down, because I think that this is it's shameful enough that we don't have enough help or enough education for the kids now to even hide the good guys. I mean, I'm going to call it hiding the good guys, because you are the good guys and we don't want people to know about you. I mean, you should be there in every single ad. I mean, big companies should say, hey, this is what we're going to do, is we're going to make a list of all the agencies throughout the country, and we blast it out on television and on commercials and social media and so on. How else can my company help you?
I feel like spreading awareness is the biggest part. I feel like that is our ultimate goal. And people ask me all the time. They're like, well, what happens if you guys end violence and it's done? What are you guys going to do? I'm like, I would be so happy to go find a different job. If I don't have to work and to prevent this mission on the violence in the world, then I would be happy. I would be so happy if violence was just stopped. Everybody could live a violent free life. There was nothing like that in this world. I would be so happy. I would be more than happy to go find a different job. And so, but unfortunately, I don't see that happening because I feel like there's just so much prevention, education, awareness work that needs to be done before that can even be even thought of.
Can you tell me when in your life you decided to go down this path, and why?
My father was very verbally abusive to my mom my whole life, and I thought it was normal. And then my first husband, was very similar. So, and then I actually never knew there was any place to get help. And then so I applied one day through the Council of Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence and got hired there and learned about a lot of different things. So for me, it was personal. In the beginning, it was very personal.
Joseph, right? You've been
Yep.
you've been very quiet. Why don't you tell me why? What is the reason why you got into this industry?
I have an undergraduate and a master's degree in criminal justice. And so I focused a lot on like family violence in school. I wrote several papers. I actually am an adjunct as well, and I teach gangs and organized crime. And I do educate the students on human trafficking, about signs and victimization, and just different things like that. And it's something that I've really enjoyed doing. And so when I found out Haven House had the position open, I applied and I interviewed, and now I'm here.
Thank you for doing it.
I don't even think that the two that are on here actually know this story. So when my mom actually was ended up pregnant with me, she ended up opening up to me that the reason why she was pregnant is because my dad was like sexually assaulting her, but she also was married, and so she didn't know that that was sexual assault. She just thought it was just her relationship, and she had no idea. And so going off of that, my mom ended up leaving with me and my sister, and we moved in with my grandparents. And then ever since then, it's kind of, I feel like it goes back to that cycle. My sister ended up getting into a bad abusive relationship. And so then she just thought that that's what love was. That's how she thought that's how she just thought that you show love is by like abusing, sexually assaulting, and stuff like that. And so I remember being in like middle school because she's 3 years older than me, and I remember just having her like talk about everything, and she would always try to hide it. She would never, like, you could clearly see like bruises on her and stuff like that, and she would always lie about it. She would always hide it. And so then after that, I was like, okay. So then when the position opened up at Haven House, I remember that I had also applied, got the job, and then ended up, after I had been in the job for a little bit, we ended up, my sister actually left her kids' dad and moved back in with my mom. And so I feel like it's just a big cycle. And so I feel like that's what we needed to stop, is that cycle. That's why I'm so strong on that cycle.
So when the victims come in, sometimes do you personally get attached to them?
I can relate and I can feel where they're at and I can feel their trauma, but I don't personally get attached, but it does inspire me to get all the resources for them. Get them everything they need so that they can make the choice to leave and stay, free of violence.
Has been a case, one case, if you can think of, that made you not want to be in this because of the violence that you saw?
That question always gets asked to me when we have new staff on. They're always like, what makes you continue to do the work when the hard cases come in? And I always tell new staff, I'm always like, it's those success stories. Those stories, the clients that come in and you're able to, they have been abused for their whole lives. They're getting out of that abuse. You contributed to that. You contributed to somebody knowing the like non-violent way to live. Now they can go on with their life. And so I really go back to, it's those success stories. Those are what makes it all worth it. The Unfortunately, some of the cases are like, some of them are heavy, and I feel like we rely on a lot of our other staff to like talk it out, kind of like self-care between all of us. That is huge. Of like not taking it home, like you leave it at work. And so I feel like there's just a lot of stuff that makes you try, you don't want to try to get emotionally attached to the client, because that's when it gets hard. That's when you almost feel like we got to be there for them. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. We almost got to keep them on their schedule, not their schedule, on their game plan, because we don't want them to feel like they're a burden to us. Like, well, you guys have helped me so much. Like, no, like I'm just gonna leave. Like, you guys have done enough for me. So we just want to ensure them, like, no, like once you're a client of ours, you're always a client. I don't care if 10 years down the road you come back to us and you just want to talk about it because something triggered you, come back. I feel like those are the clients that really just keep us going, and that's what I feel. I feel like they keep us going.
Have survivors come back?
There's a lot of options. Either we've got them in their own place and now they're not in our shelter. They just want to come back. They want to check in with us. They just want to let us know, like, hey, like I ended up seeing my abuser out in the public, and then they just want to talk that out with us. They'll come back in for that. We get people that haven't even, that are still married or in the same household as their abuser, that they have heard about us. They want to get help, but they want to have a safety plan. So when they come in, we're like, okay, it is not safe for us to give you all these flyers with Haven House on them. I couldn't imagine what that's going to happen if you were to take that back into your house and it was to get found. And so we tell them, we're like, hey, here's the phone number. Like, do you need to save it in your phone as something else? You know where to go for help. And so this is the number that you need to call. Here's our crisis line. Call us if you ever need to leave, or if something happens, we're going to get you out of that situation. And so we do have a lot of people that actually still currently live in their house, and that's a lot of safety planning. We tell them, like, if there's any way that you can get like your birth certificate, your social security cards in one place, because we know that you need all of that to apply for health insurance. You need that to apply for like any state help. You need that for housing. Anything that you might need, you're going to need those documents. And if you can have a chance to get those out safely, then let's get those out, and or put them in a safe spot. So when you go, you know to grab this one bag, and then that's going to get you back up on your feet. Because we've had it. I mean, I feel like birth certificates can take at least a few weeks. Social security cards to even get an appointment there during COVID, it was months out, and that just kind of put like even more barriers on top of our clients. And so we kind of just safety plan with them, like, if it's not safe for you to get any of this stuff, we're going to figure it out. Once you walk in these doors, we're going to start that process. But we just don't want you, we don't want the client to feel that that there's no hope, or like they're like, no, like now I have to do all this to even do this, and then they'll even be like, well, is it just better for me to go back home? So we hear that a lot, and so we just have to safety plan with them. We've had multiple times where statistically they leave their try to leave their abuser 7 times. We know that. So if somebody comes in and this is the first time that they've tried to leave their abuser, but then they go back to their abuser, we tell them, we're like, okay, that is your choice. If you want to do that, you know where we're at. You've been here. Like, show up to our office. Like, we're gonna help you. But with you coming here for help, we're never gonna call you anymore. You're not gonna get phone calls from us, because what would happen if you got a phone call from us? That situation is gonna be horrible. So we're not gonna put you in that situation. You just call us if you need that help.
Do they go back to the abuser?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to normalize it, but it is a complete normal emotion to want to go back, because most of the time, their abuser was their financial support, 100% financial support. Their abuser has made them feel like they are absolutely nothing and they have no hope and they have nobody else in the world that loves them like their abuser does. Their emotional state, their mental state, their financial state, and their physical state most generally is highly affected to where they are almost 100% dependent on the abuser. So leaving is one of the hardest things and the bravest things that they can do.
They call it the honeymoon stage, or the honeymoon stage, honeymoon phase, whatever the name for it is. What that means is they've left, say they came into our shelter, we've tried to get them. Their abuser now contacts them, tells them they're going to change, they're going to go to counseling, everything's going to change if you move back. Like, I'm sorry, it was a one-time thing, this is never going to happen again. And so they start telling the survivor all this stuff, and so the survivor starts believing them, and then they end up going back, and then that cycle just happens to repeat. The honeymoon stage can last for, I've seen it last for a year, 2 years, and then it eventually just repeats. So that honeymoon phase can be one day, it can be an hour, it can be 24 hours, it can be until the next weekend, it can be until the next time maybe they like are on like substance abuse, or it can even be a couple years down the road. But so the honeymoon phase is completely different. It depends on the person. And so I feel like that's why a lot of the clients go back. I know recently we've actually been seeing a lot of immigrants, whereas in their abuser ends up getting them papers. They file for them to get papers. They get all of their documents, and so then they tell the survivor, they're like, so if you leave me, I get to take your documents away, and you're not going to have anything because I got you these documentation so easily. I can take them away so easily. So they don't know that, and so if they're threatening those like papers, they're more likely to stay with them. Whereas when they come to us, we're like, they don't have anything to do with it. Once you have all your documents, like, they can't take that away. They're not the government. Like, your abuser cannot physically take your documents away. And so they're like, okay, so like they can't. And so then I feel like that's something that we've been seeing a lot in these last few years, is just that control over those documentations.
Are these abusers also trafficking them to other clients for money or other substance or for other reasons?
That you could be having a partner where you're in a domestic relationship with, and they are grooming you to start having sex with their brother, cousin, neighbor, friend, stranger, grooming you to that point where they're going to start selling you, or they have already started selling you. But it originally had started off with a relationship where you thought this guy or this girl or whatever, male, female, doesn't really, it isn't really a gender thing. This person has made you think that they're the greatest person in the world, and that they're the greatest person in the world, and they're going to take care of you. And then it gets to the part where they're done with the grooming and they're pushing for the sex. And then that's when they start frightening these people. I will kill you. I will kill your family. And then that's when the domestic starts, and also the violence on the trafficking side.
Grooming them, what does that mean?
It's preparing them to be sold for sex or for work.
First, they get them as friends, boyfriend, whatever. Once they are in their grip,
Yeah, they build a trust level, and then and they start.
Just to add to that, a lot of the times, those who are being victimized are very vulnerable. They target people who are runaways. They target people who have had just issues with financials, and they promise them a place to live, and then everything's great, they provide all these things to them, and then they say, but what are you going to do for me now? And so then they start victimizing them. They yeah, treat them very good for a while, and then they start victimizing them and then putting them into trafficking.
After they are being trafficked without their consent, they have somehow found your agency to run away to. And
Yep.
how did they do that? How do they find your agency? Because you are hidden, right? So how does one find you then?
I think most of the time it's from a friend of a friend of a friend, or they heard that we could help with something, because we do give a lot of people food pantries, diapers, wipes. We do try to supply who our clients are with items, and when you're getting something free, that gives the word out. You know, that gets the word out. Hey, I got this free at this place. So sometimes people just kind of happen upon us by accident, and which is wonderful, because then they're figuring, they're starting to figure out that they're in a situation that is not good, and we're here to help.
As a filmmaker, I said to myself, okay, we're making this film, but at the same time, I want people to use this film as a icebreaker to speak to the young ones. Hey, this is what happens in the world, and blah blah blah, and start the conversation. And the first thing I stumbled upon was, how do I let people know? So I contacted all the TV stations, and I contacted not all the TV stations, but I contacted a lot of TV stations. And a lot of them said yes, but there was a lot of them that said no. And I'm like, wait a minute. And the person who's trying to contact them and saying, this happens in your state as well. It's not a New York thing. It's not a North Dakota thing. It happens in your state, because the television, the channels, they started to say, but what is in it for us? Why should we report this to our audience? And I'm like, duh, you're just trying to bring the awareness of something that happens in our country to everybody. And it's as simple as that. It's not what happens in my state and what happens in your state. It's one, right? It's one country. So I think putting your things out on television, I think that would be extremely, extremely helpful. And whatever we can do to support your organization, letting the people know in Nebraska and in New York, it doesn't have to be only in Nebraska. We will do that. I personally think you guys are heroes. You're not just heroes, you're heroes of mine. I really think that you guys are doing an amazing, amazing job to help another human. I wish I had that much in me to do it. I don't. I'm selfish. I like to make films. But I think it's at least it's my job to try and get the word out, which I will do on every single way possible. Why don't you tell people how they can reach you?
We've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We do have Snapchat as well. We also do have a website, and you can go to the website. You can kind of see what we do. We actually have where to go for help. One of the big features that we have on our website, just for safety, we're all about safety. Safety is like our number one priority. We have like an escape button. So as you're scrolling through the page, and if you were looking for help, and yet you realize that you needed to quickly get out of that situation, you can just push the emergency exit button, and it's actually going to trickle a whole bunch of pages where it's like the Weather Channel or like CBS or something like that. So if the abuser comes in and you were able, instead of just going, if they hit the back button to see what you were doing, it's going to go through all those breadcrumbs of like random, like again, like the Weather Channel or any random things that it's going to go to. They're going to have to actually search before they hit Haven House, just as a safety factor. So we believe safety is key. So if you are looking at the website and you do need a quick exit, you can definitely click that. You can always call our crisis number. The crisis number is 1-800-440-4633. That is a 24-hour crisis line. Holidays, everything like that, you will always get an advocate. We do have an answering service. They take down your name and your phone number, and then they're going to get a hold of an advocate. And then within a few minutes, you're going to get a call back from an advocate. And so that is a huge way if you need help.
Thank you for coming on and speaking to me and giving me, the time and letting me ask you questions and explaining things to me. But I thank you for doing and being who you guys are. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for reaching out to us and supporting our passion and supporting our cause. And we were thrilled. We were absolutely thrilled to hear from you.
It's people like you that make us know that there's people out there that are standing behind us. That also keeps us going. Is we're like, if it's not just us and we know people are supporting us, then that's a huge thing that we look forward to.